A dying warrior fell into the river Omi, clutching his last breath like a broken shield. He thought he had escaped death's grip. Instead, he entered the arms of something older, and far more dangerous. What happened next would unseal forgotten river magic, trap a soul in an eternal loop, and turn a quiet water spirit into a weeping witness of endless suffering. Sometimes the cruelest punishments don't come from demons or kings, but from love offered too quickly, and life stolen too early. He thought he was being saved by a beautiful mermaid. Instead, he made a vow that would turn every sunrise into a curse and every nightfall into a funeral. This is the story of Obasai, the soldier who made a bargain with a river bride. And how his greatest wish, to live forever, became a nightmare that killed him 100 different ways. Before we dive deeper into this epic tale, we'd love to know where you are watching from. Tell us in the comments. And if you love high-stakes fantasy filled with mermaids, magic, love, and sacrifice, don't just watch, be part of our adventure. Like this video, share it with someone who loves powerful stories, and hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow, we've got an extra special story lined up for you, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. A huge thank you to all our amazing channel members. Your support helps us keep these magical tales alive and thriving. The wind howled like a wounded lion. Leaves danced wildly across the battlefield, where broken spears stood like crooked fingers reaching to the sky. The evening sun bled into the clouds, casting the world in a reddish glow. Crows circled above, waiting for the silence to finish swallowing the screams. Obasai lay in the mud, face down, body still. His breath came in slow, painful gasps. His shirt was torn, soaked with blood, and his left arm wouldn't move. One of his legs twitched now and then, like even death hadn't fully made up its mind about him. Everything hurt. But he was too tired to cry. He was alone. His village, Idara, had been attacked without warning. The soldiers of Uroko, the mountain kingdom, had come like thunder, fierce and full of fire. Obasai had fought with all his strength. He was a strong man, proud and tall, with skin the color of deep earth and eyes that burned with quiet fire. But even fire can be drowned. Now, all around him were fallen warriors. Some he knew. Some he didn't. The flies had begun their work. "I don't want to die," Obasai whispered, though no one could hear. Not the trees. Not the spirits. Not the gods. His eyes fluttered shut. But just as darkness took him, a cool breeze swept across the ground, different from the hot air before. It smelled like river lilies and rain. It whispered softly, too soft for words, but it called him. Beneath his body, the earth began to change. The mud grew wet and warm, like water dancing under the surface. Then came the voice. Obasai. Soft. Musical. Not of this world. He blinked. Tried to speak. A shadow leaned over him, blocking out the red sky. And then, splash. The battlefield vanished. The sound of water filled his ears. Cold wrapped around his skin like silk. When he opened his eyes again, he was no longer on land. He was underwater. But he could breathe. All around him shimmered deep blue light, dotted with golden fireflies swimming through the current. Strange fish with glowing fins danced in circles. Coral trees stretched from the riverbed, swaying like dancers in slow motion. And in front of him, she hovered. She was the most beautiful thing Obasai had ever seen. Her skin was the color of fresh palm wine, glowing faintly in the water. Her hair floated like a black storm cloud, twisting and curling as if alive. Her eyes were silver, like moonlight on the river. And her lower half, a long tail covered in silver-green scales, moved with grace no human could match. "Obasai of Idara," she said, voice like a lullaby. "You stand at the door of death." He tried to speak, but bubbles escaped his mouth. "You are brave," she continued, her fingers brushing his cheek. "You fought to protect your people. But death does not always mean the end." She drew closer. Her presence was calm and powerful, like a river that had seen 1,000 moons. "I can save you," she whispered. "But you must give me something in return." Obeisai's chest rose and fell, though he did not float or sink. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice strange in the water. She smiled. "You must be mine." He frowned. "Yours? What do you mean?" "You will live," she said. "But not for free. You must become my husband. Bind yourself to me. Stay close to the river. Belong to Zinari." Zinari. Her name rolled through the water like thunder through a shell. Obeisai's thoughts were cloudy, filled with pain and fear. But one thing was clear, he didn't want to die. Not yet. Not here. "Will I be free?" he asked. Zinari tilted her head. "You will not grow old. You will not rot in the ground. You will not be forgotten. I offer you life. The rest is a journey." Obeisai hesitated. But the cold hand of death was still behind him, waiting. "I agree," he said, voice steady. She smiled again, but this time, her eyes flickered, like a storm passing through them. "Then so it shall be." She pressed her palm against his heart. The river swirled around him. Light filled his chest. A low hum echoed in the water, a song of old magic. And then, darkness. The sound of drums. The smell of smoke. Obeisai opened his eyes. He sat up suddenly, heart pounding. His hands were clean. His body, uninjured. No scars. No pain. He was no longer underwater. He was in his village, Idara, but something felt wrong. The colors were too bright. The trees shimmered like they were made of glass. And the people did not recognize him. Children ran past him, laughing. Women pounded yam near the huts. Drummers played beside a tree, dancing in a strange rhythm. A festival. Obeisai stumbled forward. "Mother," he called. "Baba." No one answered. Where am I?" A man passed him, carrying a calabash. "Watch where you walk, stranger." "Stranger?" He turned to a boy selling roasted maize. "What day is it? What's my name?" The boy laughed. "You're mad, uncle. Go and sleep." Obeisai's hands trembled. Then he heard it, the whisper of the river. It was calling him. Just beyond the trees. He ran. Through the forest. Past the shrine. Down the familiar path to the riverbank. And there, sitting on a rock, was Zinari. She smiled, her silver eyes shining. "Welcome, husband." "What is this?" he shouted. "I thought you saved me." "I did," she said softly. "And now, your journey begins." "What journey?" But before she could answer, the sky cracked open. A flame lit the treetops. A scream echoed from the village. Obeisai turned, fire. Idara was burning. The huts, the trees, the people, engulfed. "No!" he cried, racing back. But the heat struck him like a wall. A falling branch knocked him to the ground. As the world turned to ash, Obeisai looked up through the smoke. And saw Zinari watching from the riverbank. Her silver eyes were full of sorrow. Then, darkness. The sound of heavy footsteps. The scent of roasted yam leaves and burning wood. Obeisai opened his eyes again. This time, he was not in the river. He was lying on a thick bed of woven raffia mats, covered in soft goat skins. A carved ceiling of red painted wood stretched above him, glimmering with gold dust. On the walls hung the heads of wild animals, lion, hyena, buffalo. The room pulsed with the quiet beat of distant drums, as if the walls themselves had a heartbeat. Obeisai blinked in confusion. Where am I now?" A voice answered from the shadows. "Your Majesty, the council awaits you." He sat up slowly. In front of him knelt a young man, bare-chested, wearing beads of coral and ivory around his neck. The man bowed his head deeply. "Shall I bring your royal robe?" he asked. Royal robe. Obasai asked, eyes wide. What do you mean? The servant glanced up, startled. My king, have you forgotten? Today is the day of judgment. You are to decide the fate of your enemies from the village of Oguno. Obasai stood slowly and walked to a polished gourd mirror on the wall. The face staring back at him was his own, but older. He had gray streaks in his beard, and his eyes, those same eyes, were sharper now, lined with wisdom and weariness. A beaded crown of gold sat on his brow. I'm a king, he whispered. Yes, King Obasai the Just, the servant said with pride. Your enemies fear you. Your people sing your name. Obasai's heart pounded. Another life. Another world. The river had spun him into a new dream. But what was real? The palace was grand. He was led through high halls lined with giant wooden masks and statues of ancestors. Warriors with leopard skin wraps pounded their spears on the floor as he passed. Children tossed petals in his path. Obasai the Wise, they sang. Obasai the Lion King. At the great meeting hall, village chiefs and council elders knelt before him. A prisoner was dragged forward, a young warrior, bruised and bound. He attacked our border with 20 men, an elder growled. Kill him. Let his people know we are not weak. Obasai sat upon a throne carved with snakes and drums. His heart was heavy. The young men before him looked familiar, too familiar. His eyes, his mouth, even the scar on his cheek. No, Obasai said slowly. That's not possible. The prisoner lifted his head. Father. The word struck like thunder. Obasai gasped. His own son. But he didn't remember having a child. Not in this life. Not in the others. Father, the prisoner repeated. Don't let them kill me. Obasai stood. Who are you? The boy blinked. I'm Teo. Your only child. You banished me last harvest for refusing war. The elders murmured among themselves. Teo's voice grew louder. You taught me that life matters more than power. You once said peace is stronger than bloodshed. Now you sit on a throne of bones. Do you even remember who you were? Obasai's legs trembled. Everything felt wrong. The faces of the council blurred. The drums beat faster. The torches on the walls flickered and hissed. Outside the windows, clouds rolled in, dark and thick. Thunder cracked. Obasai clutched his chest. A sharp pain. He staggered backward. Your Majesty, the elders shouted. Teo lunged forward, but the guards pulled him back. The throne room tilted. Obasai fell to his knees. He could feel it again. Death. Like a cold hand brushing the back of his neck. No, not again, he groaned. Zenari, why? The world twisted. The last thing he saw before darkness claimed him was Teo's face, streaked with tears. He awoke to the sound of sobbing. Not his own. This time, he was much smaller. His arms were tiny. His fingers, round like yam tubers. His legs were weak. He was barefoot and cold. He was a child. He stood in a forest, one he had never seen before. Tall irako trees loomed overhead. Thick vines curled like snakes around their trunks. The air smelled of smoke. Then came the scream. Help! Please! Obasai turned toward the sound. Through the trees, he saw a flicker of orange light, fire. His feet moved before his thoughts could catch up. He ran. Branches scratched his arms. Thorns bit his legs. But the scream called him forward. He burst into a clearing and froze. A small girl, no older than 5, stood surrounded by fire. Her dress was singed. Her eyes, wide with fear, locked onto Obasai's. Help me, she cried again. He looked around. No adults. No river. Just trees, smoke, and fire. He ran toward her. The heat was unbearable. His skin burned. But he pushed through. "Hold my hand," he shouted. She reached out. Their fingers touched. Just as the flames closed in, he pulled her free. Together they ran, coughing and crying, until they reached a stream at the edge of the forest. The girl collapsed, weeping. Obasai held her. He didn't know who she was. But he felt something. She looked up at him. "What's your name?" He hesitated. "Obasai." She smiled through tears. "You saved me, Obasai." He smiled too. For the first time in many lives. But then, a rustle behind him. He turned. Zenari. Not in her mermaid form. But in the shape of a tall woman in white, with silver eyes. "You're learning," she said softly. Obasai stood. "Why am I here? What is this?" "You saved someone today," she said. "You chose another's life over your fear." He stepped closer. "Then let me go. Let this end." Zenari's eyes clouded. "Not yet. But I." "Obasai," she said gently. "There are many rivers in your soul. You've only crossed a few." The trees around them began to twist. The world folded in like a paper scroll. The sky vanished. Obasai screamed. Then, darkness. The sound of drums. Low, deep, and wild, like thunder in a lion's chest. Obasai awoke to their beat. He was not on a throne. Not in the forest. Not in a bed. He was crouched on red earth, surrounded by dust, sweat, and shouting. He was holding a spear. He wore a raffia skirt and a headband made from gazelle hide. Around him were warriors, painted in black and white clay. Their faces were hard, eyes filled with fire. A voice boomed from the front of the crowd, "Today, the people of Duma will dance to the rhythm of war." Obasai blinked, confused. What is this place?" Beside him, a tall warrior with one eye grinned and clapped him on the back. Obasai. You're not shaking, are you?" Obasai shook his head slowly. "No. I'm not." But his hands trembled. Before them stood a tall stone arch carved with 3 horns and a lion's head. Behind the arch, a great open circle, the arena of Duma. It was packed with villagers, beating drums, waving palm branches, shouting Obasai's name. Obasai the hunter. Obasai the thunder spear. The one-eyed warrior leaned closer. "You kill the beast today, and the people will give you their daughter and the golden drum. If you lose, well, they will sing songs about your bravery." Obasai swallowed hard. "What beast?" The warrior only laughed and pointed. From behind the stone arch, a great wooden gate opened. Silence fell. Then, a roar. It came from deep below the earth, shaking the stones. The villagers screamed and cheered. Obasai raised his spear. Out came the beast. It was like nothing he had ever seen, half leopard, half crocodile, its body covered in spines and fire-colored scales. Its eyes glowed yellow. Chains rattled around its thick neck. Obasai took a step back. "No," he whispered. "This isn't real." But the beast saw him. And charged. The crowd screamed. Obasai stood frozen. Then, crack, his spear snapped in his sweaty grip. He fell backward as the beast lunged. But before it could strike, something glimmered in the dust. A drum. Small, golden, glowing softly. Without knowing why, Obasai reached for it and struck it once. Boom. The beast stopped. It growled, shaking its head. The crowd gasped. Obasai struck the drum again. Boom. This time, the ground lit with strange markings, runes like rivers and snakes. Then, a third beat. Boom. The beast whimpered. Obasai's body felt warm, filled with light. His broken spear floated into the air, glowing, repairing itself. He stood. The beast bowed before him. The crowd roared with joy. But in the center of that joy, he saw her. Zinari. Dressed in white, sitting alone beneath a palm tree, her face unreadable. Obasai walked through the crowd to her. "They all love me here," he said. She nodded. "Yes. But do you love yourself?" He looked down. "I don't know who I am anymore." Zinari stood slowly. "You are Obasai. But which Obasai are you trying to become?" He shook his head. "Why are you doing this to me?" "I am not doing anything," she whispered. "The river shows what your soul remembers." "Then let me remember all of it," he shouted. Zinari touched his cheek. "You are close. But not yet." The world shimmered like heat. The drums slowed. Obasai fell again. Into silence. Into sleep. This time, he woke on a small mat under a mango tree. Birds chirped in the branches above. A gentle breeze kissed his skin. He was wearing simple brown wrappers, and his hands were rough, like those of a farmer. He sat up. A tiny clay hut stood beside him. Smoke drifted from its thatched roof. A goat bleated nearby. And on a low stool sat an old woman with white hair, grinding peppers in a wooden bowl. She looked up and smiled. "You're finally awake, Obasai." He stared at her. "Do I know you?" She chuckled. "Every time you ask that. And every time, I say yes." She picked up a small calabash tied with cowries and gave it to him. "This is yours." He opened the calabash. Inside was nothing. Just wind. And a whisper. Obasai blinked. It spoke. "Yes," the old woman said. "That calabash holds the voices of your past lives." Obasai's breath caught in his throat. He held the calabash close. It whispered again. "Remember the boy you saved. Remember the son you lost. Remember the drum you beat." He looked up, trembling. "Who are you, really?" The old woman's smile faded. Her eyes, silver and deep, looked into his. "I am the first one," she said softly. "Before Zinari. Before the river chose her. I was once the keeper of the waters." Obasai's heart skipped. "Then you know how I can stop this." She stood and placed her hand on his head. "You are walking through your own spirit, Obasai. Until you forgive your deepest wound, you will keep dying." "What wound?" he asked. "Tell me." She touched his chest. "Here. The one you buried the day you left your real path." The wind rose. The mango tree shook. The calabash glowed. Then, flames. Screams. Thunder. Obasai was pulled again into darkness. Obasai opened his eyes. He was lying on soft grass, and above him, the sky rumbled with gray clouds. Rain fell gently on his face, cool, clean, and steady. The scent of wet earth and burning wood filled the air. Around him were mud huts with pointed thatch roofs, silent and still, except for the rain. He stood slowly. His body was smaller. His arms were shorter. His voice, when he spoke, was the voice of a child. I'm a boy again." He ran to a puddle. The reflection showed the truth. He was no older than 10. Bare feet, scraped knees, short hair, a small woven bag tied across his chest. He turned to the largest hut. Its door hung half open. Inside, a woman lay on a mat, wrapped in palm fronds, skin cold as stone. His mother. Obasai stepped backward, trembling. "No," he whispered. "Not this life, please, not this one." It was the day he first met death. The real death. The one that changed everything. He heard footsteps behind him. A man in a red wrapper, with a staff made of ebony and gold, walked toward the hut. The village seer. She has crossed, the seer said softly. Your mother's spirit now walks with the ancestors. Obeisai's lips quivered. You said you could save her. The man closed his eyes. She refused the river's call. She wanted you to live. The boy Obeisai dropped to his knees. I don't want to live without her. Thunder echoed in the sky. Then, from behind the rain tree, a girl appeared. Her dress was made of white and blue cloth. Her feet were bare. Her hair shimmered like wet coal. Zenari. But she was no longer a woman. She, too, was a child. She approached gently, her eyes full of sadness. You were so small, she said. Even then, I watched you. Obeisai's young eyes widened. You were there that day. Zenari nodded. I was always close to the river's chosen. Even before you chose me. He shook his head, eyes red. This day broke me. I lost everything. She stepped closer. You lost her. But you did not lose yourself. Not yet. Obeisai stood. Why are you showing me this? Zenari tilted her head. You must return to the wound. Only there can healing begin. Suddenly, the boy Obeisai turned to the body of his mother and placed his forehead on hers. Forgive me, Mama. I wanted to be strong. But I'm still lost. And then, the mother's eyes opened. Only for a moment. Her voice, soft as the wind, said, Remember who you are, Obeisai. The river cannot hold you if you remember. Then she was gone again. The world began to twist. Obeisai's boy body began to fade. He was pulled backward, through mud and memory, rain and whispers. And as he faded, Zenari whispered into the wind. You are beginning to wake. Obeisai gasped, finding himself underwater. But he was not drowning. He was floating gently, like a leaf on the surface. Above him, the moon shone through the river's veil. Below him, shapes moved, familiar and strange. He could see his past lives, all walking beneath the water like shadows. There, himself as the king stabbed by his own son. There, himself as the blind beggar, eaten by dogs. There, himself as a fisherman caught in a net of fire. Each version of him walked alone, silent, confused. He screamed at them. What do you want from me? One shadow turned. It was himself, but different. He had no fear in his eyes. No confusion. Just calm. This version of Obeisai smiled. Then pointed. A mirror rose from the riverbed, made of light and liquid. In it, Obeisai saw every moment he had tried to run, from pain, from truth, from his own spirit. And in the center of the mirror was a flame. Small. But alive. Zenari appeared beside him, her hands folded. This is the truth I could not tell you, she said softly. You were never cursed, Obeisai. You were chosen. For what? He cried. Why must I suffer so many deaths? To remind you that life without meaning is not living. To help you find the one death that is not the end, but the beginning. Obeisai looked into the flame. It pulsed. And suddenly, he remembered. The battlefield. The moment before Zenari took him. He had been given a choice, kill the defeated enemy general, or spare him. Obeisai had lowered his blade. He had chosen peace. But then, an arrow pierced his chest. He remembered falling. Smiling. Not afraid. That was the true life, he said. Zenari nodded. Yes. The one where you lived without fear. The one the river has waited for you to remember. Obeisai turned to her. Then let me go back. Her smile was soft. Not yet. You have one last death to face. Obeisai's hands clenched. What do you mean? Zenari touched his heart. You must die as yourself. With your full spirit. Only then will you be free. Obeisai stepped back. The mirror cracked. The river shook. And once again, the current dragged him away. Obasai landed hard on dry earth. His lungs filled with dust. He coughed, groaned, and looked around. He was back in a village, but not his own. The houses here were cracked and crumbling, as if abandoned for years. The air smelled of old ashes. Trees stood bare, without leaves, and the sky above had no sun, just a dull gray glow, as if twilight had come and decided to stay forever. He stood, brushing sand off his chest. He was himself again, adult, scarred, and heavy with the weight of all the lives he had lived. A strange silence filled the air, as if even the birds had forgotten how to sing. He turned, and there it was. A single hut. Isolated. Squatting at the end of a crooked path. Its walls were made of river mud, now dry and cracked. And its door, unlike any other, was painted pitch black. Obasai's heart began to pound. Something deep inside him whispered, "Don't open it." But his feet moved forward. Each step felt heavy, like walking through water. When he reached the door, he raised a shaking hand. Knock. Silence. Knock. A low creak answered him as the door opened slowly on its own. The air inside was thick. Wet. Cold. He stepped in. The room was filled with mirrors. Tall, wide, cracked, foggy. Dozens of them, each showing a different version of him, some laughing, some crying, some screaming, some sleeping. And at the far end of the hut was a single wooden chair. On it sat Obasai. Another Obasai. But this one was broken. His eyes were hollow. His skin pale. Around his neck hung a chain made of river stones. His hands gripped the arms of the chair, knuckles white. Who are you?" Obasai asked. The seated figure looked up. "I am the one who never left." Obasai frowned. "What do you mean?" "I am the first you. The one who chose Zenari. The one who died at the river's edge, and never moved again." Obasai's breath caught. "You stayed here." "I stayed in the moment of your choice," the figure said. "You accepted Zenari's deal." "I never did. I've sat in this room watching all the versions of you try to escape." He pointed at the mirrors. One begged for mercy. One burned the river. One became a god. None of them found peace. Obasai turned to look at his reflections. Each flickered with a different fate. "But you stayed still." "Yes," the seated figure whispered. "Because stillness is the last truth. Movement is noise. Fear. Panic. But stillness is where the spirit speaks." Obasai knelt before the chair. "Then tell me, how do I end this?" The broken Obasai looked at him with sad eyes. "You already know." Then the black door slammed shut behind him. And the mirrors shattered all at once. Obasai was thrown backward into a whirlwind of glass, dust, and water. He did not scream. He closed his eyes. And let go. He awoke in the river again. But this time, the water was still. Not a wave. Not a whisper. He was lying at the bottom, surrounded by glowing river lilies and fish that did not swim. Time had stopped. Zenari stood over him, her long hair floating like seaweed. Her eyes glowed a deep silver. She no longer looked like a child, or a woman, or a spirit. She looked like all of them at once. "Obasai," she said, her voice like a lullaby. "You are almost at the end." He nodded. "I saw myself. The part of me that never left." She circled him slowly, her fingers trailing through the water. "And what did he say?" "That I must be still." Zenari smiled. "Yes. You have tried every path, fighting, fleeing, tricking, praying. But never stillness. Never surrender." Obasai met her gaze. "Then, I surrender. Do what you must." But Zenari shook her head. No, Obei-sai. You must choose. Not me. He stared at her, confused. She pointed to a stone altar rising behind her. Upon it was a silver bowl, carved with symbols that pulsed like fireflies. This bowl holds your binding, Sanari said. The promise you made when you chose to marry me. Obei-sai walked slowly toward it. The water around the bowl shimmered, and he heard 1,000 echoes, each one his own voice, dying again and again. He placed his hands on the bowl and spoke. I take back the life I gave away. Not to run, but to live it fully. Even if it means I die for real. Even if it means I never wake again. Zanari stepped back. The bowl cracked. The river groaned. And all at once, Obei-sai was lifted into the current. His body dissolved into light. His memory spun like wind and flame. Every version of him. The king. The beggar. The child. The soldier. All merged into one. He became whole again. And the river sang. Zanari watched from below, tears in her eyes. She whispered, "Goodbye, my river husband." And then she was gone. Obei-sai opened his eyes, not to water, nor dust, nor fire, but to a place both familiar and strange. He was back in his original village, yet not quite. The trees stood taller. The huts glowed softly, as though touched by the breath of spirits. A thick mist hugged the ground like a sleeping snake. Birds sang, but their songs echoed backward, as if time itself were moving in reverse. He stood near the shrine of the ancestors. A stone idol shaped like a lion sat in the center, its mouth open as though caught mid-roar. That's when he noticed something strange. His body was glowing faintly, as though riverlight danced beneath his skin. Footsteps approached from behind. Obei-sai turned. An old man, wrapped in a flowing red robe, walked slowly toward him. His face was hidden behind a wooden mask carved with river symbols, zigzags, spirals, and the eye of Alakan, the ancient sea mother. Obei-sai had seen this mask before, during one of his past deaths, a brief moment before he was swallowed by fire. That time, the elder said nothing. This time, he spoke. You came back, the elder said, voice deep like thunder in a well. Obei-sai stepped forward, wary but curious. Do I know you? The masked man laughed gently. You have died 99 times. Yet you ask questions as though this is the first. That is what makes you worthy. Obei-sai narrowed his eyes. Are you a spirit? Or another test? I am neither, the elder replied. I am the gatekeeper. I stand between the breath and the grave. Between memory and forgetting. Obei-sai's hands clenched. Then why did you let Sanari curse me? Why did you let me suffer? She did not curse you, the gatekeeper said calmly. She kept you alive long enough to learn what no warrior ever wants to learn. And what is that? That peace, the elder said slowly, is not something you win. It is something you become. Obei-sai felt the words settle deep in his chest. The gatekeeper turned toward the lion idol and touched its stone paw. At once, the shrine shifted, revealing a hidden staircase leading into the earth. Come, he said. You must see the root of the river. Obei-sai hesitated. The last time he followed a path underground, he died in a cave of collapsing bones. But something in the elder's voice was different, calm, kind, eternal. He descended. And the world above vanished. The staircase spiraled for what felt like hours. The deeper they went, the warmer the air became. The walls turned from stone to earth to something stranger, pulsing like skin, glowing like moonlight. Obei-sai felt the river calling, not just outside him, but inside his very blood. At last, the steps opened into a vast underground chamber. Obei-sai gasped. It was a giant root system, wider than any tree he'd ever seen. Roots thick as elephant trunks twisted upward and downward in endless coils, glowing with soft blue light. Water dripped from the ceiling and pooled at the root's base, forming a lake that shimmered with images, flickers of Obei-sai's past lives, their deaths replaying in silence like ghost shadows. This, the gatekeeper said, is the beginning of the sacred river. Before Zinari. Before your village. Before time. Obeisai fell to his knees. I remember this place, he whispered. From a dream, or a death. It was here, wasn't it? That I was first given the choice. The gatekeeper nodded. It is always here. Every soul must come here. But not every soul remembers. You are the first to make it back with your spirit whole. Obeisai reached out and touched the root. A wave of light surged through him. Suddenly, he remembered. Not just one life, but all of them. He remembered being a kind old man who taught children to fish. He remembered being a motherless child who gave his last yam to a stranger. He remembered being a brave warrior who chose mercy on the battlefield, even when the enemy spat in his face. He remembered the exact moment he met Zinari by the river, the way she wept, not because she wanted him, but because she was alone too. He remembered everything. Tears filled his eyes. I was never meant to live forever, he whispered. I was meant to understand. The gatekeeper removed his mask. It was not a man's face beneath. It was Obeisai's face. Older. Wiser. Whole. I am who you become, the face said, smiling. If you choose peace. Obeisai's mouth trembled. What if I'm not ready? You are, the voice replied. Because you are asking. Then the image faded. And Obeisai stood alone. The roots around him began to hum with music, no drums, no flutes, just the sound of breath and earth and water, moving in harmony. And from the lake at the center, Zinari rose. But this time, she was different. Her eyes were no longer glowing. Her scales had turned pale, almost translucent. She walked on bare feet, like a human. Obeisai, she said softly. You came home. Obeisai ran to her and embraced her tightly. I'm sorry, he whispered. I blamed you. I hated you. But you never hated me. Zinari held him close. No. I only waited. I hoped one day you would see the truth. He pulled back to look at her. And now? Zinari smiled. Now, I give you a choice. One last time. She raised her hand. In it appeared two objects. A shell, beautiful, spiraled, glimmering. And a stone, simple, rough, unremarkable. The shell is memory, Zinari explained. Take it, and you return to the river, to eternal life. The loop will stop, and you will become a part of me, forever. Obeisai touched it. It hummed gently. And the stone. The stone is time, she said. Take it, and you will be born again into the world. No magic. No immortality. No me. You will forget this place, but your heart will carry the lesson. You will die one final time, when your journey ends, as all humans must. Obeisai looked at both. For a long time, he said nothing. Then he looked at Zinari, really looked, and saw in her eyes the pain of endless waiting, the burden of being the keeper of forgotten souls. He smiled. And reached for. Obeisai reached out with steady hands, and chose the stone. The moment his fingers closed around it, the chamber shuddered as though the earth itself sighed. Zinari's eyes widened, not with anger, not with sorrow, but with pride. You are ready, she said softly, her voice quivering like the edge of a leaf kissed by morning dew. Obeisai looked down at the stone in his palm. It was plain and rough, no larger than a kola nut. But as he held it, he felt a warmth blooming in his chest, like sunlight after a storm. It pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, and suddenly he knew, this was no ordinary stone. It was his final chance to live. His final chance to die. And this time, it would count. Zinari placed her hand on his chest, just over his heart. When you wake next, you will not remember me, she said. Not the river, not this chamber, not your deaths. Obeisai's throat tightened. And you? I will remain, she replied, her eyes glistening. watching. As I always have. But not as your keeper. As your witness. Obeisai's eyes burned with unshed tears. I thought I loved you. Zenari smiled sadly. You did. But it was the kind of love that came from need, not truth. What you found was love for yourself. Then the root chamber began to fade. Water flooded the floor, gentle and warm, rising up to his knees, his waist, his chest. Obeisai's last memory was of Zenari's face, fading beneath the rippling water, and the sound of her voice. Live well, Obeisai. And die once. Obeisai opened his eyes to the sound of drums. But he was no longer Obeisai. He was Obi, a 10-year-old boy with sun-dark skin, a thin frame, and a curious spirit. He sat beneath a palm tree at the edge of a Meiji village, watching the young men prepare for the festival of the Horned Mask. His mother's voice called out from a nearby hut. Obi. Come help me with the yams before the visitors arrive. He blinked, confused. A strange warmth lived deep in his chest, like something calling from far away. But he shook his head and ran toward the hut. The day unfolded in laughter and preparation. Women pounded yam and fried akara, children sang songs while tossing pebbles in the dust. The village elder sat beneath a great irako tree, sipping palm wine and debating the strength of each family's masquerade costume. Obi felt it all, every taste, every smell, every heartbeat, as if for the first time. He had no memory of Zenari, or the river, or the 99 lives before. But something inside him was different. When he looked at the river that curved just beyond the village farms, his breath caught. It shimmered in the sun. For a moment, he thought he saw a woman standing in the water, waving. He blinked, and she was gone. That night, after the festival, Obi sat alone by the river's edge. The stars blinked like eyes in the sky. Crickets sang their lullaby. The cool breeze brushed through the trees like whispers. He looked down at his hands. Something about them felt old. He turned his palm up, and there, resting in the center, was the stone. Not physically, but in his mind's eye. He could feel it. A memory he couldn't name. A promise he didn't understand. He felt a tear slide down his cheek. And for a moment, just one fleeting second, he heard a voice in the water. You chose well. But when he turned around, there was no one there. Only the river, flowing peacefully into the dark. The next morning, Obi woke early. The village was still sleeping. He tiptoed past his mother's mat and slipped outside. Drawn by something he couldn't explain, he walked to the shrine of the village masks. There, stacked neatly in the sacred hut, were dozens of wooden masks, each carved to represent an ancestor, a spirit, or a legend of the land. He reached out toward a mask shaped like a lion. As his fingers brushed it, a shock ran through him. Memories flooded in, but not his. He saw a man, tall, broad-shouldered, bleeding on a battlefield. He saw a river maiden with silver eyes and a voice like wind through trees. He saw himself, dying over and over again, each time different, each time more broken, more afraid. He gasped and fell backward. The shrine door creaked open behind him. It was the elder seer, an old woman with eyes so white it was said she could see both past and future. You have touched a memory not meant for this world, she said gently. Tell me, child. Who are you really? Obi trembled. I don't know, he whispered. The seer knelt beside him and placed a hand on his head. Oh, but you do. Somewhere deep inside. A seed has been planted. You were not born for nothing, Obi. You were returned. Obi looked up at her, eyes wide. Will I die? Almost, she said, smiling softly. But not today. Today, you must live. Back in the sacred river, Zenari sat upon a rock, watching the waters swirl gently. The other merfolk had long since returned to the deeps, their songs quieted. But Zenari remained, her gaze fixed upon the world above. She could see him, Obi. Alive. Free. And though he did not remember her, she remembered everything. Every word. Every death. Every look of hope and heartbreak. He had passed the test. He had chosen time. Her body was beginning to change now. The magic that bound her to the river was fading. She no longer glowed. Her scales had dulled. Her long fins grew shorter. Soon, she would be something else. Maybe spirit. Maybe dust. But she was not afraid. Because he was free. And as she vanished into the morning mist, her voice lingered in the wind. Let this be the final gift. One life. One death. One love, remembered. The sun had barely risen when Obi woke to the sound of silence. Not a bird chirped. Not a goat bleated. Not even the leaves rustled. It was as if the world had held its breath. He sat up slowly, heart beating loud in his chest. Outside his mother's hut, the village of Mermaid stood still. The festival had ended the day before, and the energy had faded, but this silence felt different. Heavy. Thick. Like the sky was pressing down on everything. Then came the first drumbeat. Boom. It echoed through the air like thunder from underground. Obi scrambled to his feet. His mother was already outside, head turned toward the sacred grove, her face pale. It has begun, she whispered. What? Obi asked. What's happening? The drums of choosing, she said quietly. They sound only once every 100 seasons. When the gods are looking for someone. Obi's stomach twisted. Looking for who? His mother didn't answer. She just took his hand. Together, they walked with the rest of the villagers toward the grove. The sacred grove was a circle of tall trees, twisted and ancient, with roots that curled like old fingers. In the center stood a stone altar, stained red with offerings from generations long past. The entire village gathered in silence. Only the drums spoke. They were played by blind drummers, their eyes white like milk, their heads bowed. No one knew where they came from. No one dared ask. The elder seer stepped forward. Her face was painted in white chalk, her staff topped with the skull of a monkey. Her voice rose above the drums. The spirits stir. The river speaks. One must walk the path of knowing. One must remember what others forget. She turned slowly. Her eyes, white and empty, landed on Obi. The villagers gasped. Obi felt his legs lock. His breath caught in his throat. No, he whispered. Not me. But the elder seer pointed at him with her staff. You carry the stone. You carry the silence. You carry the seed of death that lives. Obi tried to run, but his mother held him. Obi, no, she said, tears in her eyes. This is not a punishment. It is a calling. But I don't understand, he cried. I don't remember anything. You don't need to, she whispered. Your soul remembers for you. The drummers stopped. The silence returned. Then, the seer leaned close and said something only Obi could hear. She waits by the river still. And with that, the crowd parted, and Obi's feet began to walk, toward the forest path, toward the river, toward the truth. Obi walked for hours. The trees grew thicker. The sounds of the village faded behind him. He walked until the sun dipped low and the air shimmered with gold. Finally, he reached the river. But it was not the calm, quiet stream he remembered. It pulsed with strange light. The water moved in slow spirals, and the trees bowed toward it like worshippers. Obi knelt at the edge and looked into the water. At first, he saw only his own face. Then, it shifted. His reflection became a man. A warrior. Bleeding on the battlefield. Then a king with a crown too heavy for his head. Then a child, crying in a burning forest. Obi gasped and fell backward. Memories surged like a flood, being stabbed in a palace. Being drowned in a well. Being praised, being cursed, being forgotten. He clutched his head. No more, he cried. But the river sang. Remember. Not to suffer, but to be whole. From the water rose a figure. Tall. Radiant. Not entirely human. Not entirely spirit. It was Zinari. Her body shimmered like water-made flesh. Her eyes, silver like the moon, softened as she looked upon him. "You came," she said. Obi stared. "I know you." "You should," she whispered. "You loved me once. I died." "Many times," she said gently. "But never truly." "Why?" Obi asked, tears filling his eyes. "Why did I have to die so many times?" Zinari floated closer, until her hand could rest just above his heart. "Because living is not just breathing. Living is choosing. And you had to remember how." Obi fell to his knees. "I'm tired," he said. Zinari knelt beside him. "Then rest. But not in death. In truth." She placed her forehead to his. And the river lit up like stars had fallen into it. Obi woke in his village. But this time, everything felt real. The yams were cooking. The goats were bleating. The breeze carried the scent of wet earth and roasted maize. His mother smiled at him, but her eyes held a new light. He walked to the river, and Zinari was no longer there. She had passed on. Her test was over. His soul was whole. He was no longer Obesai the cursed, nor Obi the chosen. He was simply alive. And for the first time in 100 lives, he laughed. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of orange and purple. The village of Amaji settled into the calm hush of evening. Smoke curled lazily from the huts, and the soft chatter of families winding down floated through the air. Obi stood at the edge of the riverbank, watching the water ripple under the touch of a gentle breeze. His heart felt different tonight, lighter, yet full of quiet power. For the first time in what felt like forever, the weight of his endless death seemed to lift. Suddenly, the night around him shimmered. Tiny lights appeared, flickering like stars fallen from the sky. Fireflies, hundreds of them, danced in the air, weaving through the trees and swirling around Obi like a living cloak of light. He raised his hand, and a firefly landed delicately on his palm. Its glow was warm, comforting. "Welcome back," whispered a soft voice. Obi turned sharply. Standing behind him was an old woman, her eyes bright and knowing. "You must be the one," she said, smiling kindly. "The one who has passed through death many times and come back whole." Obi blinked, surprised. "Who are you?" "I am Mama Ife," she replied, stepping closer. "The keeper of the village stories, the guardian of the past and the future." Obi nodded slowly, feeling the truth in her words. "I'm still trying to understand. Why did Zinari bring me back?" Mama Ife's gaze grew deep. "Because your journey is not over. The river chose you for a reason. You have learned to live not by escaping death but by embracing the spirit that connects us all." The fireflies circled Obi and Mama Ife, lighting up the night like tiny lanterns. "The river remembers, and so must you," Mama Ife said. "Your past lives, your wisdom, they are gifts to your people." Obi looked toward the village. "But how do I use these gifts? How do I help when no one remembers what I have lived through?" Mama Ife's smile deepened. "By becoming the bridge between the land and the river, the past and the future. You will teach the villagers to see with their hearts, to listen to the river's song." Obi breathed in deeply. The fireflies swirled faster, and for a moment, he felt the pulse of all his lives, kings and beggars, children and warriors, all flowing through him. "That is your true power," Mama Ife said. "To bring peace where there was pain, to heal where there was hurt." As the fireflies faded into the night, Obi's eyes sparkled with new hope. "I will try," he whispered. "For all the lives I have lost. For the love I almost forgot." Mama Ife reached out and placed her hand on his shoulder. "You will not be alone. The river watches, and so do we." Obi turned to look at the river again. Somewhere deep beneath the shimmering surface, he felt Zinari's presence, a gentle promise that his story was still unfolding. And beneath the vast African sky, the village of Mermaid slept peacefully, unaware that their protector had finally returned. The morning air was thick with mist as Obi stepped beyond the familiar paths of Mermaid. The villagers had whispered for generations about the Whispering Woods, a forest that bordered their lands, alive with ancient spirits and secrets long forgotten. Few dared to enter, for it was said that those who walked too far might never return, or worse, become lost in a maze of illusions. But Obi had no choice. The voices in the village were growing uneasy. Crops were wilting, children were falling ill, and strange shadows flickered near the edge of the woods as night fell. The elders said this was the work of a restless spirit, or worse, a curse. Obi's heart beat steadily as he stepped beneath the thick canopy, where sunlight barely touched the ground. The trees seemed to lean close, their leaves rustling softly, as if whispering secrets just beyond human hearing. "Who walks the path of the river's sun?" a voice seemed to murmur in the wind. Obi stopped, eyes wide. Was it the forest speaking? Or his own memories playing tricks? He moved forward, the soil soft beneath his feet, his senses sharpened. He thought of Zinari and the river, and the fireflies that had lit his way just last night. Suddenly, a shadow flickered ahead. A figure, pale and shimmering, appeared among the trees, a woman with eyes like deep pools and hair that flowed like water. "Obi," she said softly. "You carry the spirit of many lives, but your journey has only just begun." Obi's breath caught. "Who are you?" "I am Ao, guardian of the Whispering Woods," she said, stepping closer. "I have watched you from the shadows. The river chose well, but the woods hold dangers you must face alone." Obi's hands clenched. "What dangers?" Ao's gaze turned grave. "Dark forces stir in the forest. Spirits of anger and sorrow, tied to your past lives. They seek to claim your soul." Obi swallowed hard. "How do I stop them?" "By remembering," Ao whispered. "By facing the pain you tried to run from." The river's test was but the first step. Now, the woods will ask for your truth. A gust of wind swept through the trees, carrying a soft chorus of voices, whispers of kings betrayed, children lost, warriors fallen. Obi closed his eyes and let the voices wash over him. They were not strangers, they were pieces of himself, fragments of lives he had lived and died. "I am ready," Obi said with quiet strength. Ao nodded, a faint smile crossing her lips. "Then walk the path, river's son. The woods will show you the way." As Obi stepped deeper into the shadows, the trees seemed to part, revealing a narrow trail bathed in silver moonlight. Behind him, the village of Mermaid waited, unaware that their protector had entered the heart of the forest and the shadows of his past. The path through the Whispering Woods twisted and turned like a serpent, each step taking Obi deeper into the unknown. The moon hung high, casting eerie silver light that danced on the leaves and twisted branches. Every rustle seemed to whisper secrets, every shadow seemed alive. Obi's heart thudded not from fear, but from a strange sense of purpose. The voices of his past lives echoed faintly in his mind, the king betrayed by his own son, the beggar torn apart by wild dogs, the child lost in a burning forest. Each memory carried pain and sorrow, but also lessons he had yet to understand. Suddenly, the air grew cold and heavy. From the shadows, figures emerged, ghostly shapes, neither fully human nor spirit, eyes glowing with sorrow and anger. The first figure stepped forward, a tall man in torn royal robes, his crown crooked and broken. His voice was sharp and bitter. "Obi, you lived as a king and died betrayed. Did you fight? Did you rule with justice or fear?" Obi's breath caught. "I was betrayed by my son. I tried to protect my people, but I failed." The figure's eyes softened for a moment, then grew fierce again. "You fled your fate. Did you stand strong? Did you face your enemies with courage?" Obi clenched his fists. "No. I ran. I wished for peace, but I was afraid." The spirit shook his head and faded into mist. A cold wind blew through the trees. From the mist came a second figure, a small, ragged boy, dirt-streaked and frightened, tears in his eyes. "Obi, You were once helpless and alone, lost in flames. Did you cry? Did you pray? Did you find your way? Obi's throat tightened. I was scared. I wished someone would save me. But no one came. The boy's voice grew louder, desperate. Then why do you keep running? Why do you fear the end? Obi knelt, whispering, because I don't want to die again. The boy reached out, his ghostly hand touching Obi's cheek. You already died, many times. Now it is time to live. Before Obi could speak, a third figure appeared, this one cloaked in rags, eyes wild and fierce. You begged for mercy, begged for life as a beggar, the spirit growled. Did your prayers save you? Or did your fear betray you? Obi looked up, voice steady. My prayers gave me hope. My fear taught me strength. But I want to be more than fear. The spirit's glare softened, then it too faded away, leaving silence. Obi stood, heart pounding, feeling the weight of his past lives settle within him. Suddenly, a gentle voice called from the shadows. It was Ao, the guardian of the woods. You have faced your shadows well, Obi. The pain you carried is real, but so is your courage. Now comes the hardest part. Obi turned to her, eyes wide. To break the cycle, you must surrender, not to death, but to yourself. You must accept all you were and all you are. Obi nodded slowly, understanding dawning. The trials were not to punish him but to teach him. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply, feeling the spirits around him, the king, the child, the beggar. They were parts of him, pieces of a whole. With a steady voice, he said, I accept you all. I accept my past, my fears, and my hope. The whispering wood seemed to exhale, the heavy air lifting. The spirits faded, replaced by a warm golden light that wrapped around Obi like a cloak. Ao smiled, her eyes shining. You have passed the trial, River's son. Your journey will continue, but now you carry the strength of all your lives. Obi opened his eyes, feeling something new within, a calm power, a deep peace. The village needs me, he said softly. And so does Zenari. Ao nodded. Return to the river, Obi. Your story is far from over. As Obi made his way back through the trees, the first light of dawn began to break over Meiji, promising a new beginning. The river stretched before Obi like a silver ribbon, glistening under the early morning sun. Its waters whispered softly as if eager to share secrets long hidden beneath its shimmering surface. Obi's feet sank into the cool mud at the riverbank where he had first met Zenari, the mesmerizing river mermaid whose promise had saved him from death, but at a price heavier than he ever imagined. Obi's heart pounded as he stepped closer to the water's edge. The villagers in Meiji were still waking, unaware that their protector had faced the dark spirits of the Whispering Woods and lived to return. But Obi's mind was not on the village now. It was on the woman whose eyes held the depth of the river itself. From the water, a soft melody floated up, a song woven from the river's ancient magic. Then, like a ripple blossoming into a wave, Zenari emerged. Her skin shimmered like the river's surface, her long hair flowing as if made from liquid silver. Her eyes held sadness and hope all at once. Obi, she whispered, her voice carrying the gentle power of the river, you have returned. Obi bowed his head respectfully. Zenari, I have walked through shadows and faced the parts of me I feared most. The woods have shown me that I cannot run from my past. Zenari's gaze deepened. And what have you learned? That I must accept all of myself, every life I lived and every death I faced, to break the cycle. Obi's voice was steady, yet filled with longing. But I still don't understand. Why me? Why this endless loop? Zenari sighed, her shoulders rising and falling like the river's tide. The river is ancient, Obi. Older than any village, any kingdom. Its magic is woven from life and death, from beginnings and endings. When I found you wounded on the battlefield, the river's magic bound us, not just to save your life, but to test your spirit. Obi's eyes narrowed in confusion. A test? What kind of test? Zenari reached out, her fingers brushing the water's surface, sending ripples shimmering like stars. The river does not grant eternal life without price. It demands growth, wisdom, and surrender. Your many lives are not punishment but lessons, each death a chance to learn, to forgive, to find peace. Obi looked down at his hands, trembling. But I am tired, Zenari. 99 lifetimes of fear, pain, and loss. I don't know if I have the strength to continue. Zenari's voice softened. You do not walk this path alone. I have watched you, cried for you, and believed in you all these years. The river's magic flows through both of us, and it is your courage that will finally set us free. Obi's gaze lifted, meeting hers with renewed determination. Then tell me, Zenari, what must I do? How do I end this cycle and live truly? Zenari smiled, a radiant light glowing from her. There is one secret the river keeps, a hidden place beneath the waters where time stands still. There, you must face the final trial, surrender your fears and embrace the truth of who you are. Obi swallowed hard. The river's heart? Zenari nodded. Yes. Only by touching the river's heart will the bond between us be complete, and only then can you break free from the endless cycle. Obi's heart swelled with hope and fear. The path ahead was clear but dangerous. To survive, he would need every ounce of courage he had gathered through his many lives. As the sun climbed higher, casting golden light over the river, Obi and Zenari stood together, bound by ancient magic and a promise that their story was far from over. The river's surface glittered under the midday sun, calm and inviting, but Obi knew better. Beneath the peaceful waters lay a world full of mysteries and dangers, a place where time bent and magic lived. Zenari's voice was soft but firm. Obi, the river's heart lies deep below. You must dive into the depths where no man has gone before. The water will hold you, but your spirit must be strong. Obi swallowed, the cool air filling his lungs. I'm ready. Zenari reached out and touched his chest. A gentle warmth spread from her fingers into his skin, filling him with courage. Then she dove gracefully into the river, her silver tail flicking like a shimmering fish, disappearing beneath the surface. Obi took a deep breath and followed. The water embraced him like a cool silk cloak. As he sank deeper, the world above faded into a distant shimmer. Strange shapes swam past, glowing fish with eyes like stars, plants that swayed even without a current, and shadows that danced in the dim light. His heart beat steadily, his mind calm but alert. Ahead, a glowing light pulsed softly, like a heartbeat beneath the riverbed. That was the river's heart, a magical stone, ancient as the river itself, said to hold the power of life and death. But between Obi and the light, the water grew thick and dark, swirling with shadows that whispered doubt and fear. Turn back, hissed a voice made of mist. You cannot face what lies beneath. Obi steadied himself. I must. As he swam forward, the shadows twisted into forms, memories from his past lives, faces of those he loved and lost, fears he tried to hide. The king who was betrayed. The child lost in fire. The beggar begging for mercy. Each shadow reached for him, tempting him to flee or to give up. Obi closed his eyes and whispered, I accept you all. I am not afraid. A bright light burst from his chest, pushing the shadows away. The water cleared, and ahead, the river's heart glowed brighter, beckoning. Obi reached out and touched the stone. It pulsed with warmth and power, filling him with a rush of memories and emotions, love, loss, courage, and hope. Suddenly, a voice echoed inside his mind, Zenari's voice, clear and strong. You have faced the river's test, Obi. Now, your spirit is free. Obi opened his eyes and found himself back at the riverbank, the sun setting in a golden blaze. Zenari smiled at him, her eyes shining with pride. The cycle is broken, she said softly. You are no longer bound to endless death. You are free to live, truly live. Obi's heart soared. For the first time in many lives, he felt peace. But deep inside, a question stirred, what new journey awaited him now, with the river's magic flowing through his veins? The first light of dawn crept gently over the horizon, painting the sky with soft oranges and pinks. The village of Amaji stirred slowly awake, as roosters crowed and smoke curled from cooking fires. But for Obi, the new day felt unlike any he had ever known. He stood at the edge of the village, near the old baobab tree that had witnessed countless seasons. The air was fresh, filled with the sweet scent of blooming flowers and damp earth. Yet, in his chest, a quiet strength pulsed, a river's magic flowing through his veins. Zenari's words echoed in his mind, "You are free to live, truly live." But what did that mean for a man who had lived many lives, died countless times, and walked the thin line between the world of the living and the mysterious depths of the river? As Obi stepped forward onto the dusty path leading into the village, the familiar faces turned toward him. Children playing near the wells paused, their eyes wide with surprise. Elders resting on woven mats straightened and whispered among themselves. "Obi," called a voice, soft but hopeful. It was Amara, the weaver's daughter, with eyes as bright as the morning sun. Obi smiled warmly. "Amara, it is good to see you again." She stepped closer, her curiosity shining through. "We thought you were gone forever. You disappeared after the war." Obi nodded, feeling the weight of their loss and fear. "I have returned. But I am changed." A hush fell over the villagers as Obi walked deeper into the heart of Amaji. The market stalls, the clay huts with thatched roofs, the vibrant fabrics hanging like waterfalls of color, all were the same, yet Obi's vision saw them anew. He paused at the well where the women gathered water, watching as their laughter echoed across the square. The children ran past him, chasing a stray goat with joy unburdened by fear. Obi realized that life, simple, ordinary, and fragile, was a treasure he had not truly understood until now. Suddenly, from the river's edge, a ripple disturbed the calm water. Obi turned to see Zenari standing there, her silver hair gleaming in the early light. "You are home," she said, stepping onto the bank with grace. Obi's heart swelled. "Yes, Zenari. And I am ready to live this life with courage and love." Zenari smiled, her eyes sparkling with warmth. "Then let us face this new dawn together." As the sun rose higher, casting golden rays over the village and river, Obi felt a deep peace settle within him, a promise that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he was no longer bound by fear or endless death. He was free. Truly free. The sun climbed high, burning away the morning mist, but an uneasy chill settled in Obi's heart. The village of Amaji bustled with life, yet shadows lurked in corners unseen, whispers from the past, haunting memories born from the many lifetimes Obi had lived and lost. That evening, as the orange and purple hues of sunset bathed the sky, Obi sat outside his small hut, staring into the dying embers of a fire. The faces of his past, the betrayed king, the lost child, the beggar, flickered in his mind like ghosts refusing to rest. A sudden rustle behind him made him startle. It was Toma, the village elder, his face lined with years of wisdom. "Obi," Toma said gently, "there are those who speak of strange happenings by the river. Shadows moving in the night, voices carried on the wind that no one else can hear." Obi nodded slowly. "The past is not so easily forgotten. The river's magic has freed me, but it also stirs old forces, memories and fears that still cling like vines." Toma looked deep into Obi's eyes. "You must be strong, my son. The village will stand with you. Together, we can face whatever darkness returns." Just then, a distant howl broke the quiet, a sound neither beast nor man, but something ancient and wild. Obi rose, muscles tense, knowing that his trials were far from over. As night fell, the villagers gathered around the fire in the square, their faces illuminated by flickering flames. Mothers held their children close, while hunters sharpened their spears and swords. Obi stood before them, his voice steady. "Friends, I have returned from the river's depths. I carry with me the magic of life and death, but also the shadows of my past. We must not let fear divide us. Together, we will face whatever comes." From the darkness, a figure emerged, a tall man cloaked in black, eyes glinting like cold steel. It was Ikon, a warrior who had once betrayed Obi in a past life as the king. "You claim freedom, Obi." Ikon sneered. "But the past never forgets. I am here to remind you, death's grip is not so easily broken." The villagers gasped, but Obi stepped forward calmly. You may carry my past hatred, Ikon, but I have learned forgiveness. Tonight, that is my shield." The air thickened as Ikon raised his hand, summoning shadows that writhed like living darkness. But Obi closed his eyes, calling on the river's magic within. A shimmering light burst from his chest, pushing back the shadows with warmth and hope. Ikon staggered, the darkness dissolving like mist. With a final glare, he vanished into the night. The village erupted in cheers, but Obi knew this was only the beginning. The river's test was far from over, yet with the strength of his people and the magic of the river, he was ready to face the shadows that still threatened to consume his world. The morning after the shadowed night was calm and clear, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. The sun shone gently over Meiji, casting golden light on the faces of villagers busy tending their daily tasks. Yet, beneath the surface, a quiet hope stirred, hope born from the promise of healing. Obi stood at the river's edge, the cool water lapping softly against his feet. The river had been both his prison and his salvation, the keeper of secrets and the giver of life. Today, it would be their ally once more. Beside him, Zenari emerged from the water like a silver flame, her tail sparkling with droplets that caught the sunlight. "The river's magic is strongest when shared," she said softly. "To heal the wounds left by shadow and fear, the village must come together, body, spirit, and heart." Obi nodded. "Then we begin today." The villagers gathered by the riverbank, curiosity and trust shining in their eyes. Elders brought herbs and clay, children carried baskets of flowers and fruits, and hunters brought fresh water from the mountain springs. Toma, the village elder, raised his hands for silence. "The river is our lifeblood. It feeds us, gives us strength, and connects us all. Tonight, we will offer thanks and ask for its blessing." As twilight deepened, the villagers formed a circle around the river's edge. Obi and Zenari stood at the center, hands joined. Obi spoke in a clear voice, "Spirit of the river, guardian of life and death, we come to you with humble hearts. Heal the wounds of our land and our souls. Let your waters wash away fear and pain." Zenari's voice joined his, singing an ancient song in a language soft and flowing like the river itself. The melody rose and fell, carrying the hopes of the villagers into the night sky. Suddenly, the river glowed with a gentle light, sparkling like thousands of tiny stars beneath the water's surface. A warm breeze stirred the leaves, and a sense of peace wrapped the village like a comforting blanket. One by one, the villagers stepped forward, dipping their hands into the glowing water. They washed their faces, their wounds, their fears, and with each touch, the glow seemed to grow stronger. Amara, the weaver's daughter, smiled brightly. "I feel the river's strength inside me. It's like I can breathe new life." Obi watched, his heart swelling. This was more than magic, it was the power of community, of shared love and hope. As the night deepened, stories were told around the fire, tales of courage, forgiveness, and dreams for the future. The shadows that had haunted them began to fade, replaced by light and laughter. Zenari rested her head on Obi's shoulder. "You have brought your people back to life, not just yourself. The river's blessing flows through all of you now." Obi looked out over the village, glowing softly under the stars. "Together, we are stronger. And together, we will face whatever comes next." The sun had barely risen when Obi set out from the village, his footsteps soft on the cool earth beneath the towering trees of the forest. The woods around Meiji were dense and ancient, filled with tall mahogany and irako trees whose branches swayed gently like the arms of old spirits greeting a friend. The villagers always spoke of the forest with a mixture of reverence and fear, for it was said to hold secrets older than time itself. Obi walked slowly, his eyes scanning the shadows beneath the thick canopy. For days, a strange sound had teased his ears, soft whispers carried on the breeze, like voices trying to speak from far away, yet just beyond understanding. Now, the pull to find the source of those voices had grown too strong to ignore. As he moved deeper, the forest grew quieter, save for the whispering leaves. Suddenly, the ground beneath his feet shifted, a hidden path revealed itself, lined with small stones covered in moss and glowing faintly with an eerie green light. The path twisted and wound through the forest, drawing Obi onward. Ahead, he saw an enormous tree, older and wider than any he had ever seen. Its trunk was wrapped in thick vines, and its roots seemed to stretch out like arms embracing the earth. The whispers grew louder here, filling the air like a gentle song. Obi reached out and touched the tree's bark. A warmth spread from his hand up his arm, as if the tree itself was alive and breathing. Then, suddenly, the whispers formed words in his mind, a voice deep and ancient, yet kind. Obi, son of the river, bearer of the river's gift, you have walked many lives, but now your journey grows deeper. The river flows not only through water, but through these roots and leaves, binding all life to its power. The fate of a Meiji depends on your heart's true strength. Obi gasped softly, pulling back his hand. The voice faded, leaving him trembling with wonder and fear. From behind, Zenari stepped forward, her eyes wide. This is the heart tree, she said quietly. It holds the memory of the river and the village, the past and future entwined. Obi looked at the tree again, feeling its deep pulse. What must I do? The whispers guide those who listen, Zenari replied. The tree will reveal the way, but only if you open your heart without fear or doubt. Obi closed his eyes and breathed deeply, letting the quiet song of the forest fill him. Slowly, images formed in his mind, the river flooding the land, the villagers dancing in joy, the river's magic flowing through every leaf and branch, and a shadow creeping across the water, threatening to break the harmony. When he opened his eyes, he knew his next challenge awaited beyond the forest, a darkness threatening not only his life but the very soul of a Meiji. The sky above a Meiji had grown heavy with dark, rolling clouds, casting shadows over the village as a slow wind whispered warnings through the trees. The peaceful days after the healing water ceremony seemed far behind, replaced by a heavy tension that tightened in every heart. Obi stood before the gathered villagers in the center of the square. His voice was strong but carried the weight of what he had learned deep within the whispering trees. My friends, the river's magic binds us all, but it is threatened by a darkness creeping from beyond the forest and the river's edge. We have felt its shadow in the whispers and the chill in the air. We must prepare, not only to protect our homes but to protect the very spirit of a Meiji. The crowd murmured uneasily, eyes searching for hope. It was then that a familiar sound echoed through the village, the beating of drums, steady and powerful. From the tree line, figures emerged, tall and strong, wrapped in colorful fabrics woven with symbols of the river and forest. They were the river guardians, ancient protectors long believed to be myths. Leading them was Akane, the warrior with eyes like burning coals and a voice like thunder. Obi, Akane called out, we have heard your call. The river's balance has shifted, and we return to stand with you. Obi's heart lifted. Allies from old stories, now real and ready, walked among them. We will face this storm together, Obi said, with courage, with wisdom, and with the strength that comes from unity. That night, beneath the flickering flames of the village fires, plans were made. Hunters sharpened their arrows, the blacksmith prepared weapons, and the elders whispered prayers for protection. Zenari stood beside Obi, her eyes reflecting the flickering firelight. The river has chosen well, she said softly. But the test is far from over. The darkness you face is ancient, born of anger and sorrow from lifetimes before. Obi nodded, feeling the heavy weight of the journey ahead but also the fierce hope burning within. As the winds howled outside and the stars hid behind storm clouds, the people of Meiji stood together, ready to fight for their land, their river, and their future. The village of Meiji lay quiet under a sky shrouded in heavy clouds, the air thick with the scent of rain and the distant rumble of thunder. Lanterns flickered softly along the paths, casting trembling shadows that danced against the walls of mud huts and woven reed roofs. Obi stood watch at the edge of the river, his heart pounding like a drum. Beside him, Zenari's silver tail shimmered faintly in the moonlight breaking through the cloud cover. Tonight, she whispered, the darkness comes for us. A cold wind swept through the village, carrying with it a chilling silence that seemed to swallow every sound. Then, from the depths of the forest, shadows began to stretch and twist, creeping closer like living smoke. The river guardians raised their spears and shields, forming a protective circle around the village. Their faces were fierce and determined, eyes blazing with the fire of ancestors who had battled before. Suddenly, the shadows burst forth, twisted figures, dark and smoky, with eyes glowing like embers. They moved like storms of shadow, striking without mercy. Obi felt a surge of fear, but he remembered the river's gift, the strength of his people, the lessons from the whispering trees, and the promise of the healing waters. He raised his arms and called upon the river's power. The water beside him surged and glowed, flowing up into the air in sparkling arcs that formed a shimmering shield around the village. "Hold the line," Obi shouted. "Stand strong, for Mermaid." The battle raged like thunder, arrows flying, spears clashing, and water swirling with magic. Zenari dove into the river and leapt into the fray, her voice singing a haunting melody that pierced the shadows and weakened their hold. Despite the ferocity of the attack, the villagers fought with fierce courage. Amara, the weaver's daughter, darted through the chaos, tending to the wounded and offering words of hope. Hours passed, the night seeming endless as the fight pressed on. Finally, as dawn's first light crept over the horizon, the shadows retreated, dissolving back into the forest like mist. Exhausted but victorious, Obi stood among his people, his heart heavy but hopeful. "This was only the beginning," he said softly, "but together, we will face whatever comes next." Zenari smiled gently. "The river flows with us, and so does the spirit of Mermaid. We are not alone." As the sun rose, washing the village in warm golden light, the people of Mermaid began to rebuild, stronger, united, and ready for the trials yet to come. The morning after the fierce battle, the village of Mermaid hummed with cautious hope. The wounds of the night were fresh, but so was the determination to protect their home. Obi and Zenari stood together at the riverbank, the water calm and shimmering under the bright sun. "The river has secrets," Zenari said, her voice soft but filled with urgency. "To fight this darkness, we must understand where it comes from." Obi nodded, feeling the weight of her words. "Where do we begin?" Zenari's eyes sparkled as she pointed toward a hidden cove, partly hidden by hanging vines and flowering shrubs. "There is a cavern beneath the riverbed, a place where the oldest magic sleeps." Without hesitation, they plunged into the cool water. Zenari's tail flicked gracefully, and Obi followed, feeling the river's current pull them deeper beneath the surface. The world above faded into a blur of light and sound, replaced by the serene hush of the underwater realm. The cavern's entrance was a dark arch framed by glowing algae and shimmering fish. Inside, the walls sparkled with crystals that seemed to pulse with a heartbeat all their own. As they swam further, Obi noticed carvings etched into the stone, images of river spirits, ancient battles, and a great darkness sealed away long ago. The story was told in symbols, a darkness born from a broken promise, bound beneath the river to protect the world. Suddenly, a soft voice echoed in the water, a spirit of the river, shimmering like liquid moonlight. "Obi, child of the river's gift, the darkness you face is tied to the ancient magic sealed here. Only by healing the broken bond can the cycle be broken." Obi's heart raced. "How do we heal it?" The spirit's light grew brighter, forming an image of a necklace, glowing with blue and green stones, resting on the riverbed. "Find the necklace of harmony. It holds the power to restore balance." Zenari reached out and touched a carved symbol of a mermaid holding the necklace. "This is the key, Obi. Together, we must find it." They left the cavern, bursting through the water into the sunlight. The village awaited them, but now Obi carried a new purpose, one that would take him deeper into the mysteries of the river, the mermaids, and the fate of Mermaid itself. The sun was warm on Obi's face as he stood beside Zenari at the river's edge, their eyes fixed on the shimmering water that hid secrets beneath its surface. The villagers watched silently, their hope resting on these two brave souls. "We must find the necklace of harmony," Obi said, his voice steady. "But where do we begin searching in this vast river?" Zenari's eyes glowed softly. "The necklace lies deep within the cavern of echoes, far upriver beyond the great waterfall. Many dangers guard it, but it is our only chance to heal the broken bond." Obi tightened the leather strap of his satchel, feeling the weight of the task. "Then we will go at once." The journey upriver was long and filled with challenges. Thick forests pressed close to the water's edge, and strange sounds echoed through the trees. Obi and Zenari traveled by canoe, paddling silently beneath the canopy of leaves. One evening, as the sky burned orange with sunset, they came upon a village unlike any Obi had seen, a place where the houses seemed woven from reeds and the people wore masks painted with swirling patterns. An elder approached them, her eyes sharp and kind. "Travelers, what brings you to the land of the water spirits?" Obi bowed respectfully. "We seek the necklace of harmony, to restore balance to our river and protect our home." The elder nodded slowly. "The necklace is protected by the guardians of the cavern. To pass, you must prove your heart is pure and your spirit strong." She led them to a small fire and handed Obi a woven charm. "This will protect you, but beware the trials ahead. Many have tried and failed." The next morning, Obi and Zenari set out again, the elders' words echoing in their minds. The Cavern of Echoes lay beyond a rocky bend where the river roared and foamed like thunder. As they entered the dark mouth of the cave, their footsteps echoed, and the walls seemed to hum with ancient power. Inside, shadows shifted and whispered, testing their fears and memories. Obei's heart pounded as visions from his past lives flickered before him, faces of those he had been, moments of joy and sorrow. Zenari's hand found his, steadying him. "Remember who you are, Obi. The river's strength flows through you." Deeper in the cavern, they found the necklace of harmony resting on a stone pedestal, glowing softly with blue and green light. But as Obi reached for it, a great shadow rose, an ancient spirit guarding the treasure. "You seek to disturb the balance," it boomed. "Prove your worth, or be lost to the darkness." Obi stepped forward, his voice clear and unwavering. "I seek not to disturb, but to heal. To protect my people and restore the river's harmony." The spirit's eyes softened. "Then face the final test, surrender your fear, and accept the river's gift." Obi closed his eyes and let go of his worries, the fear of death, loss, and endless suffering. When he opened them, the spirit nodded and stepped aside. With trembling hands, Obi lifted the necklace. Its light filled the cavern, and a gentle warmth spread through his body. Outside, the river seemed to sigh in relief, the waters calming and glowing with renewed life. Obi and Zenari returned to Umeji, the necklace of harmony safe in Obi's satchel. "The journey has only begun," Zenari said. "But with this, we have a chance." Obi looked to the horizon, the future uncertain but filled with hope. Night fell like a heavy curtain over the village of Umeji. But this was no ordinary night. The air pulsed with tension. Birds had fallen silent. Not a single frog croaked along the riverbanks. The trees stood still, their branches drooping like mourners at a funeral. Even the river itself, that ancient guardian of life, had grown cold and quiet, its waters as dark as obsidian. Obi stood at the heart of the village, the necklace of harmony glowing faintly beneath his tunic. Zenari stood beside him, her skin shimmering like moonlit water. Behind them, the villagers gathered with torches and spears, drummers ready to strike the call of resistance. "It is tonight," Zenari said. "The river spirit you faced in the cavern was not the only guardian. There is one more. The oldest one. The one that broke the balance long ago and twisted the river's blessing into your curse." Obi looked into the distance, where the water met the horizon. "And it's coming for us." Zenari nodded. "Not just for us. For the river. For the soul of everything we are." A low rumble shook the ground. Chickens scattered. Children clung to their mothers. Then came the mist. Thick and black, it rolled in from the water like a creeping hand. It twisted through the trees and covered the land like a blanket, swallowing huts, silencing drums, and stealing the very breath from the air. And through it came the voice. A voice that seemed to rise from beneath the earth. Deep, ancient, and full of sorrow. "You stole what was mine. You broke the bond. Now, I return, to claim it all." Obi felt the necklace burn hot against his chest. Zenari clutched his hand. "He is the first River King," she whispered. "His name has been forgotten. His sorrow never was." Out of the mist rose a shadow as tall as a tree, shaped like a man but made of water and ash, his eyes glowing with fire. His voice made the leaves tremble and the birds fall from the sky. "I offered life eternal to a warrior once. But he feared death. And now, he dies every day." Obi stepped forward, heart pounding. Then let it end tonight. I no longer fear death. I will not run from it anymore." The River King laughed, a bitter sound like bones cracking. "Then fight, and earn your soul." The battle began. Lightning flashed without rain. The ground split open, and water poured from the cracks. From the river rose warped creatures, half men, half fish, with eyes like coals and fins like blades. The villagers fought back with spears tipped in ironwood, enchanted by Zenari's blessing. Obi ran toward the River King, dodging a tidal wave that smashed into the trees. The necklace of harmony shone brighter with every step he took. Zenari called out, her voice ringing like bells underwater, "Remember who you are." Obi shouted, "I am the one who chose peace. I am the one who remembered the truth." He held up the necklace. The River King roared and launched a spear of black water toward him, but Obi didn't flinch. The necklace pulsed. And then, everything stopped. The mist froze. The warriors halted mid-blow. Even the River King's storm halted in the sky. Obi floated in a world of silence. A voice, his own voice, echoed through the stillness. "I once chose vengeance. And it cursed me. But I choose now to forgive." He touched the necklace to his chest, and light exploded from it, a wave of blue and gold that swept across the land, through the river, the trees, the village, the sky. The mist burned away. The River King screamed and began to unravel, water streaming from his form like smoke. "You remembered." He vanished with the dawn. The river calmed. The sun rose. And for the first time in 100 lifetimes, Obi did not die. When the sun rose over Meiji that morning, its golden light touched everything like a blessing. For the first time in 100 lifetimes, Obi woke up and the world had not changed. No sudden fire. No lion's roar. No screaming crowd. No death waiting at the edge of the morning. He sat up slowly on the soft mat where he had fallen asleep under the stars. His hands trembled as he touched his face, his arms, his chest. Still alive. Still whole. Zenari was beside him, curled like a river flower, her silver hair spread across her shoulders like moonlight. She opened her eyes and smiled. "You stayed," she said softly. Obi's voice cracked. "I stayed." He looked around. The village was still there, just as it had been the night before. Smoke from cooking fires curled gently into the morning sky. Children laughed in the distance. Roosters crowed. The scent of boiling yam and roasted fish filled the air. And most shocking of all, people knew him. "Obi. You're awake," called a little boy, running past with a clay drum under his arm. "Mama says the chief wants to see you." A woman passing with a basket of palm fruits smiled warmly. "You were brave last night, Obi. Our whole village is safe because of you and the river lady." Obi stared, stunned. "You know my name." "Of course," she said. Who could forget a man who stood against a river god? His knees nearly gave way. Tears rolled down his cheeks. For the first time in endless lifetimes, he wasn't a stranger. He wasn't a ghost walking in another man's skin. He was seen. He was known. He was real. Zenari stood beside him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have passed the test. Not because you fought, but because you remembered." Obi turned to her. "So this is it. I'm free now." She smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. "You are free, but freedom is only the beginning. The river gave you back your life. But there are still those who would twist its power. And the harmony you restored is delicate." Obi looked to the river, now calm, glittering like blue glass in the morning sun. "What do I do now?" "You live," she said. "And you guard the balance." A loud shout broke the quiet. It came from the eastern edge of the village. A group of hunters ran in, breathless and wide-eyed. "The river is rising again. But not like before, it's glowing." Villagers followed them down the hill, Obi and Zenari among them. When they reached the riverbank, a strange sight met them. The water shimmered with soft blue light, as if lit from within. And in the center of the river stood a tall figure, cloaked in feathers and bones, holding a staff that pulsed with green fire. A whisper moved through the crowd. "That's a river priest. From the east. From the hidden shrine of Ebel." Obi's chest tightened. Zenari frowned. The figure raised a hand. "I come not to make war," the priest said, "but to warn you, the River King's death has torn open the seal of the deep. Something older, something far more dangerous, is awakening." Silence fell. Obi stepped forward, his voice steady. "What is it?" The priest's eyes glowed like fireflies. "A being lost in time. A shadow of the first ocean. It remembers the age before rivers, before land, before breath. And now, it is coming." Zenari whispered, "It can't be." "The sleeper." Obi turned to her. "What is the sleeper?" Zenari's face had gone pale. The one thing the river was meant to hide. The one thing no mermaid, no spirit, no god was allowed to wake. The priest pointed at Obi. "You, river-born, child of 100 deaths, you must journey to the mouth of the world, where the river meets the sea. Only there can the sleeper be returned to its prison." The necklace at Obi's chest glowed again. His heart pounded. His journey was not over. The river was no longer calm. By the second evening after the priest's warning, the waters that once shimmered with peace now churned with unease. Strange birds flew overhead, screaming in tongues no one understood. The villagers of Amaji spoke in hushed tones, glancing toward the river as if expecting it to speak. But Obeisai was silent. He stood at the edge of the riverbank, arms crossed, watching the horizon, where the river disappeared into the mist. Zenari stood beside him, her long silver hair caught in the breeze. She said nothing at first. Then softly, "You feel it too, don't you?" Obeisai nodded. "Something is moving. Something, old." Zenari's eyes glistened. "The sleeper stirs." He turned to her. "Tell me what it is. No more riddles. No more half-truths. I need to know everything." Zenari looked out over the water. Long before men walked the land, before the gods carved the rivers, before even the stars watched from the sky, there was only the sea. Endless. Dark. Alive. But deep within that sea was something else. A spirit that slept while all else swirled around it. A thing so ancient, even the gods called it a mistake. Obeisai felt a chill run through his spine. A spirit. "No," she whispered. "A hunger. The kind that doesn't eat with mouth or teeth, but with time, memory, spirit." She looked at him now, face grave. It was buried beneath the mouth of the world, where the river meets the sea. The gods placed a seal there, forged from sacrifice and silence. But the River King's greed, his pact with the deep, and your many deaths, all of it weakened the seal. Obeisai's fists clenched. "Then I must go there." Zenari's eyes widened. "It's not a journey for the living. Even I, tied to the river, cannot pass beyond the delta's edge." "Then I'll go alone." "No," the voice came from behind them. It was the river priest, draped in his robe of red and bone. His staff glowed with a soft, pulsing light. "You will not go alone," he said. "The river remembers those who walk in truth. And now, it will send its champions." From the forest behind the village came 3 figures. A young hunter with eyes as sharp as eagle's talons and a spear carved from ironwood. His name was Kano, and he could track a fish through mud. A blind girl, maybe 12, with bells on her ankles and a talking drum strapped to her back. Her name was Nia, and she spoke to spirits in her dreams. And an old woman, stooped and wrinkled, carrying a calabash filled with river salt. She said her name was Mama Duma, and she once walked with Alakan himself in the time before time. Obeisai stared at them, astonished. "These are my companions." The priest nodded. "Each of them was born under the river moon. Each of them has died once and returned. They are not what they seem, but they are exactly what you need." Mama Duma cackled. Boy, if you think you'll reach the mouth of the world with strength alone, you're already dead again. Nia smiled, her white eyes turning to Obeisai. I dreamed of you. You stood on a bridge of bones and spoke the true name of the sea. Kano said nothing, only gave a small nod and tested the edge of his spear. Obeisai felt the weight of destiny settle on his shoulders again. He looked at Zenari. Will you wait for me? She placed a hand on his cheek. Always. But do not delay. The sleeper feeds on slowness. Every day you tarry, it wakes a little more. That night, they gathered supplies, charms, dried yam cakes, calabashes of palm wine, and protective tokens. Before sunrise, the villagers gathered to send them off. The chief of Umeji gave Obeisai a carved gourd filled with sacred river water. This, the chief said, was taken from the source of the river. It remembers your first death. Use it when you forget who you are. Then came the hardest moment. Obeisai turned to Zenari. She took off the chain from her neck, a thin string of river stone beads, and tied it around his wrist. Remember me, she said. Obeisai leaned forward and kissed her forehead. I always do. Then they turned to the east, to the waters that stretched like veins across the land, winding toward the great unknown. And the journey began. But no sooner had they entered the swamp beyond Umeji than the first of the river's tests came upon them. The sun disappeared behind heavy clouds. The air grew thick. And the trees began to whisper. Kano, Obeisai said, voice tight, do you hear that? Kano nodded. Voices. Too many. Mama Duma looked around, her calabash twitching in her arms. Spirits. Nia stopped walking. Her eyes fluttered. They are the forgotten ones, children who drowned before they were named. They wander the swamp, clinging to travelers' shadows. The air grew cold. Then came the giggling. High. Hollow. Close. Mama Duma growled. Don't run. If you run, they'll chase you. And if they catch you. Obeisai didn't wait for the end of her sentence. He tightened his grip on his staff and stepped forward. Then let them know we do not fear shadows. The trees bent inward, and the swamp swallowed their path. And still, they walked on. Toward the mouth of the world. Toward the sleeper. Toward the end, or the beginning. The Arrow Swamp was no ordinary wetland. It was a living thing, breathing, pulsing, whispering secrets into the ears of those who dared to enter. Its trees stretched high like ancient guards, their branches twisted like gnarled hands. Mud sucked at every footstep. The air buzzed with insects that glowed pale blue and whispered names from forgotten dreams. Obeisai led the way, his staff clenched tightly in his hand. Behind him came Mama Duma, chanting softly under her breath. The blind girl Nia followed next, her bare feet stepping confidently over roots and puddles, guided by something only she could feel. Kano brought up the rear, his spear always ready, his eyes scanning every shadow. The deeper they went, the stranger it became. The swamp shimmered like a dream. Trees grew where rivers flowed. Sky and water seemed to change places. At times, it felt like they were walking upside down, like fish swimming through a forest. And then came the laughter. Soft. Childlike. It drifted from behind the trees, curling like smoke. Kano stopped. We are being watched. Obeisai glanced around. By who? Mama Duma spat into her calabash. Not who. What? The forgotten ones. Who are they? Obeisai asked. Nia's eyes were blank and distant. Babies. Children. Drowned before they were named. Before anyone called them by love. They cling to shadows, hungry for a voice to remember them. Obeisai shivered. What do they want? A name, said Mama Duma. And if you don't give one, they will take yours. The air around them turned cold. The laughter grew louder. Then, figures appeared. At first, just shadows. Then shapes. Little children, barefoot, skin waterlogged, hair stuck to their skulls. Their eyes glowed pale green. They stepped from the trees one by one, silent now, watching. One of them, a small girl with no lips and hollow cheeks, stepped forward. "Name me," she whispered. Her voice was like wind through reeds. "Please." Another stepped forward. A boy with no feet, floating slightly above the water. "I was never held." Then another. "I never cried." And another. "I never woke." Obeisai's breath caught. They were dozens now. Maybe hundreds. Surrounding them in a wide circle, their eyes wide, hopeful, hungry. "They're not evil," said Nia. "Just lost." Obeisai looked at her. "What do we do?" "Name them," she said softly. "Call them into being." He looked around helplessly. "How?" "I don't know them." Mama Duma stepped beside him. "It does not matter. A name is power. A name is warmth. Give them one, and you give them peace." Obeisai turned to the children. They stared at him with eyes like stars submerged in water. He took a deep breath. "You," he pointed to the girl with no lips, "your name is Asha." The girl blinked. And smiled. "You," he said to the floating boy, "your name is Ikena." The boy's eyes closed, as if resting. One by one, he named them. Chika. Duro. Zara. Kalechi. Oge. Amaka. Bayo. Muna. With each name, the air grew warmer. The swamp lightened. The fog lifted. Then, as he named the last boy, Obina, the child smiled, and vanished into a wisp of light. And just like that, the children were gone. The swamp fell still. The laughter faded. But Obeisai fell to his knees, breathless, as if he had poured part of himself into each word. Mama Duma helped him up. "You've done well." Nia knelt beside him. "You gave them peace. And in return, they gave us passage." The trees opened. A dry path appeared, lined with smooth stones glowing faintly. "They accept us now," she said. "But beware. Not all spirits seek peace." As they walked forward, Obeisai felt lighter. And yet, deeper inside, he felt a pain he could not name. "What happens to them now?" he asked. "They return," Mama Duma said. "To the river. To the source. Perhaps, in time, they will be born again. And if I had not named them, they would have taken your name, your voice, your past. You would have become one of them." Obeisai's skin prickled. They walked in silence for a time. The swamp behind them, the deeper forest ahead. Soon, they reached a wooden bridge, old and rotting. It stretched over a black river whose bottom could not be seen. Nia stopped at the edge. "This is the crossing," she said. "Beyond here, time changes. Your past and your future will walk beside you." Kano tested the bridge with his spear. It held. Obeisai stepped forward, but before he could take the first step, he heard a voice. Behind him. Obeisai. He turned. It was his mother. Standing by the trees. Alive. Young. Dressed in the wrapper she wore when he was still a boy. She smiled at him. "My son," she said, arms open. Obeisai took a step back. "No, you're not real." She walked forward. "I nursed you when you had no name. I prayed for you when you went to war. And I wept when you died." He trembled. "You can't be here. You died before the war. You." She reached him and cupped his cheek. Her hand was warm. Her touch, familiar. "Obeisai," she whispered. "Come home. The river lies. Zenari lies. There is no journey. Only rest." He closed his eyes. A tear rolled down his cheek. But then he heard another voice. Zenari's voice. Soft. Distant. But clear. Remember the life you lived. Obasai opened his eyes. His mother's hand was gone. She was no longer smiling. Her skin grew pale. Her eyes darkened. Her form flickered. Then, she screamed. A scream not of grief, but of rage. Kano threw his spear. It pierced her chest. She dissolved into smoke. A shapeshifter. A memory feeder. Obasai stumbled back, gasping. Nia helped him up. The closer we get to the mouth, the more it will test us. Obasai nodded. His hands were shaking. Let's keep moving, he said. They crossed the bridge, one by one, the boards creaking beneath their feet. Beyond it lay the wailing forest. And beyond that, the sea without end. But Obasai was ready. Or so he hoped. The sea without end stretched before them like a mirror of the sky, still and endless. There were no waves. No breeze. Not even the call of seabirds. It was as if time had forgotten this place. And that was exactly what it was. A forgotten place. The mouth of the world. Here, the river met the sea, but not the sea known to maps or traders. This was the first sea, the one whispered of in old songs sung by firelight. Elders said this sea had no shore, and those who entered either found the truth, or were lost forever. Obasai stood at its edge, staring into the stillness. Behind him were Mama Duma, Kano, and Nia, all silent, all watching. In his hands, Obasai held the heart of names, a small calabash filled with the ash of the forgotten ones he had named. They had given him a gift in return, memory. Not just of his lives, but of what he had been before them. He remembered now. He had not been a cruel man in life. He had not thirsted for power or blood. He had been a warrior, yes, but also a husband, a father. A man who once chose peace over revenge, even when death was certain. And it was that act, the act of choosing death with dignity, that had caught Zenari's attention. He now understood. Zenari had not saved him out of pity. She had saved him because he had already passed the test. But she was bound to something older than mercy. Older than love. A pact. A curse. A choice she had made long ago, and now regretted. Obasai took a deep breath and stepped into the water. It was not cold. It did not splash. It simply accepted him. As he walked, the water rose to his waist, then his chest, then his neck. And then, he sank. Down. 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 Past bones of whales long dead. Past cities swallowed by storms. Past the dreams of the unborn and the regrets of the ancient. He did not fight. He let go. And when he opened his eyes, he stood not in water, but in a wide hall made of starlight and coral. At the center was Zenari. Waiting. She wore a robe of woven rivers. Her eyes were tired, filled with both love and sorrow. You came, she said. I remember now, he said. She looked away. You were supposed to forget. You were supposed to wander until you hated me. That would have made this easier. He stepped closer. Why did you bind me to this curse? Zenari's voice trembled. Because I loved you. Because I was afraid. He said nothing. I had to prove that a soul could be worthy, she whispered. Not just any soul, yours. You were the only one who died without hate in your heart. And now? Obasai asked. She stepped closer. You have lived 99 lives. In each, you met death with fear, with anger, with running. But one life, the first, you embraced it. That is who you are. That is who you must be again. Obasai lowered the calabash. What happens if I choose death again? Zenari blinked slowly. Then you will truly die. No more lives. No more mornings. No more me. Obasai's throat tightened. And if I stay, you live. Forever. But the world changes around you. Your memory fades. You become something else. A shadow. A god. A ghost. He looked into her eyes. And you. I returned to the river. To wait another 100 years. Silence. Then Obasai stepped forward and took her hands in his. Zenari, he said, you loved me with fear. I forgive you. But I do not belong here. Tears fell from her eyes. Then go. But not alone, he said. Come with me. Let the sea take us both. Zenari shook her head. I am bound. No, said a new voice. Mama Duma stood behind them, holding the staff of twining paths. No one is bound forever, the old woman said. Not even spirits. She drove the staff into the ground. The sea cracked. Light poured in from every side. The walls of the sea palace trembled. Zenari gasped, clutching Obasai's hand. What is this? A final choice, said Mama Duma. The light surged. And then Zenari's scales began to fade. Her tail split into legs. She staggered, blinking, gasping. Obasai caught her. You're human, she said, touching her face. Mortal. You gave up the river. Obasai whispered. She nodded. For love. Not fear. And Obasai understood. This was the final life. There would be no more loops. No more rebirths. He would live. And die. As a man. With her. Together, they emerged from the sea, the water breaking around them like light. Mama Duma, Nia, and Kana waited, eyes wide with wonder. You broke the cycle, Nia said softly. Zenari smiled. We chose. And the sky, once dark, turned gold. Birds returned to the trees. The river flowed freely again. The curse had ended. And from that day, villagers would speak of a man who died 100 times and chose to live just once, not because he feared death, but because he had found something greater. Peace. The rooster crowed. A gentle sound, not sharp. Like a memory softened by time. Obasai opened his eyes. There was no panic this time. No confusion. No feeling of being torn from one life into another. This morning was different. This morning was real. The straw mat beneath him was familiar. The scent of roasted yam drifted in from outside. A small clay lamp flickered beside the door. And next to him, curled up like a cat with tangled braids, was Zenari, still asleep. He watched her for a while. In this light, she looked different. Her skin no longer shimmered like river stone. Her breath was steady, warm. One of her legs twitched in a dream. She smiled faintly. Zenari was aging. Slowly. Softly. Like a flower curling toward dusk. And to Obasai, it was the most beautiful thing in the world. She had never aged before. Not when she had spent centuries as the spirit of the river, cursed to wait, to test, to mourn. Time had not touched her there. But now, as a mortal woman, time was her companion. It walked beside her like it did with every other living being. Obasai rose quietly, wrapped a cotton cloth around his waist, and stepped outside. Their home sat on the edge of the village of Yuvo, where the hills met the wide fields of maize and cassava. The people of Yuvo remembered when the river stopped flooding, when crops returned, when children stopped falling sick. They did not know exactly what had changed, but they knew that peace had returned. Some whispered that a man had married a river spirit. Others said it was simply a blessing from the ancestors. Obasai didn't explain. He was content to be known as the yam farmer with a kind wife and quiet eyes. Down the slope, Mama Duma sat beneath the irako tree, grinding herbs with her twisted fingers. She gave him a knowing look. She is resting, she asked. Obasai nodded. For the first time in her life. The old woman grinned. Let her sleep. Spirits don't dream. but women do. He sat beside her. "Tell me, Mama," Obasai asked after a while. "Did you always know this would be the end?" Mama Duma stopped grinding. "No. But I hoped. And hope, my son, is what plants seeds before the rain comes." They sat together in silence, listening to the wind dance with the palm fronds. Obasai thought of the many lives he had lived: warrior, king, orphan, beggar. All those deaths. All those faces. They felt far away now, like stones at the bottom of a clear pond. He would live just one life now. No more testing. No more waking in strange worlds. And he was ready. When he returned home, Zenari was up, stirring a pot of oji on the fire. She wore a plain wrapper around her waist and had tied a scarf around her head to keep her thick hair back. "You didn't wake me," she said, her voice still soft from sleep. "I wanted you to dream," he replied, smiling. She blinked. "I did. What did you see?" She hesitated. A river. But it wasn't lonely. It was full of people. Children. Singing. Women pounding yam. Fishermen casting nets. And you. Sitting under a tree. Holding a baby. Obasai stepped close, kissed her forehead. "That is not a dream," he whispered. "That is our future." The years flowed like gentle rain on a dry roof. Zenari learned to weave. Her fingers, once used to conjure whirlpools and storms, now tied raffia into baskets. She walked to market barefoot with the other women, laughing at jokes, bargaining over tomatoes, humming old lullabies. She became human. Her once perfect skin now bore tiny lines around her eyes. Her voice, though still musical, grew raspier. But her spirit, her spirit remained fierce, tender, curious. Obasai built her a garden behind their house. Yams, peppers, bitter leaf, and hibiscus. They would sit there in the evenings, holding hands in silence. Not because there was nothing to say, but because they had said enough. They had lived enough. On Obasai's 38th birthday, Zenari gave him a carved wooden flute. "So the wind will always sing for you," she said. On Zenari's 36th birthday, her third as a mortal, she began coughing blood. It was not a sickness any medicine could cure. Mama Duma knew. "She is fading," the old woman said. Not in pain. Not afraid. Just finishing her story. Obasai did not weep, not yet. He carried her to the garden every morning. Fed her with his hands. Sang to her under the moonlight. And one night, as crickets played their quiet drums, she whispered, "Thank you for teaching me how to die." Obasai kissed her lips. "Thank you for teaching me how to live." She smiled. And then, like a ripple swallowed by the river, she was gone. The next morning, the villagers found Obasai sitting beneath the irako tree, a single tear running down his cheek. He did not speak. He only played the flute she had given him. The sound was like wind through reeds. Soft. Gentle. Free. That evening, he buried her near the river's edge, beneath the fig tree where they had first met after the curse was broken. No marble. No shrine. Just a wooden marker. Zenari, she chose love. And the river sang that night, not with sorrow, but with joy. For even rivers can sleep when their burdens are lifted. Obasai lived many more years. He taught children how to farm. He told no tales of mermaids or curses. But every evening, he would sit by the river, watch the water, and play his flute. And sometimes, just sometimes, a ripple would rise from the river and a voice would whisper, "I remember." And he would smile, close his eyes, and whisper back, "Me too."